Every year I notice that I get a lot more questions about people that have vegetarians and vegans coming to dine with them at the holidays. And so today I want to give you the tips that you need if you have people coming to your meal that don't eat meat. Hi, I'm Liz from Veggie Everyday. I'm a vegetarian of 22 years and I love helping people who are vegetarians and who love vegetarians. So this time of year is a little bit different because you may not cook for vegetarians full time, but a lot of times you'll have somebody who may have a dietary preference coming to your meal. So you of course want them to feel welcome and want them to have something to eat without turning the whole thing upside down for you based on what you planned, right? So I'm gonna help you out the best I can. So the first thing is to know what they eat. And a lot of people still get confused about the difference: vegan, vegetarian, flexitarian, pescatarian. There's so many now, right? And I covered these in a video, which I'll put up above if you're curious about that. I want you to know though, if they say they're a vegetarian, they may or may not eat eggs. So you may just ask them too, like what their guidelines are as far as what they do and don't eat. Now, the easiest way, it depends. If you're someone who needs to make everything by scratch, and I understand that pride because I am down with that. My mom was like that, although when she had not yet figured out, when I'd only been vegetarian for a short time, what she did at Christmas, for example, is she got a pan, like a half sheet pan of cheese tortellini from this great Italian place in Omaha. And I think part of that was because she loved the rolls. They're so good. And if you're from Omaha, I'm talking about Sergeant Pepper's. But that was her easy way out. Like, I'm just gonna buy you this pan of cheese tortellini and then you have something to eat. Now, at a holiday, there's always sides, but it's nice, and you can definitely make a meal out of sides as a vegetarian, but it is nice to have a main if it's possible. So you can always pick up a dish from a restaurant. Another thing is you can get a pre-made vegetarian option. Please, for the love of God, do not buy tofurkey. I know you mean well, I know everybody who does, but I myself think it's a rubber ball. It's literally like a rubber ball. So I've only had it once. It was gross. Every vegetarian I've ever talked to has not liked it. Like, you'll eat it because you appreciate the gesture, but it's not good. Not good. However, like if you go to Whole Foods or Trader Joe's, or some even like the regular grocery stores have them now. They're called holiday roasts. Those are actually really good. And I think Gardein makes one, and I think the same people who make tofurkey make one too, but the tofurkey itself is like, nobody's gonna eat it. Okay, like your dog won't want to eat it. It's that bad. Places like Whole Foods do have like special things that they make themselves in their in-house deli section too. But if you're going to do that, if you're going to order like a vegetarian roast or something from them, making sure that you do it in advance, like a few weeks in advance of the holidays, because I know that you have to give them lead time if you're going to do that. Another thing that you're going to want to do is let people know kind of what's going on. And you don't want to single out the vegan or the vegetarian, but it could be as simple as setting something aside for them and saying, here, this is the thing I set aside for you, or labeling things. If you're that fancy, I mean, that's kind of fancy for like a family meal to label things. But like my friends, for example, I went to a football party about a month ago and they made queso and they just left a little bit out that didn't have any meat in it. And I completely appreciated it. I thought that was awesome. And so it's as simple as being like, this is what has meat, this doesn't, you know. And it's also on them. It is also on the vegetarian or vegan to ask like, hey, what's in this? Or what's going on with this? You know, does this have meat in it? One easy way to alter things that you might be making anyway for the vegetarians is if it has a broth in it. Like, for example, I know stuffing or some casseroles have like chicken broth or whatnot. You can easily make that with vegetarian broth, and it just revamps the whole deal. Leave some stuffing out of the bird, cook it outside. But Just doing that, like those little teeny things, it's so easy. Like, or if you're making a pasta that has meat in it, leave out a portion without the meat, add the meat at the end, give that to everybody else, and then the meat-free version to the vegetarian. So you don't have to make completely separate meal for the vegetarian. You can make little tweaks that make it work for everyone. Okay, this is a personal thing, and I don't know how the people that are coming to your meal are, but I think that both sides should have reasonable expectations. Like, I think the vegan or vegetarian just wants to have that feeling that they know there's going to be things for them to eat. But they also should not be demanding that the whole meal be changed around to accommodate them. That's not fair. But also, you know, if they show up and they're invited to this event, there's absolutely nothing for them to eat. That's not cool either. So, like I said earlier, if I have sides, if I have stuff I can eat, I'm fine. I'll figure it out. I don't expect you to completely, you know, but if every single dish on the table has meat in it, even though you knew there was a vegetarian coming, then that's going to be kind of hard. So I think this also kind of applies if you're having a potluck type situation, because if you're asking the people who don't eat meat to bring dishes, and none of the other dishes, nothing you're providing is vegetarian, it's kind of frustrating, because then it becomes like, okay, so I'm supposed to bring something that everybody else can eat that, you know, it doesn't have meat in it, which is fine, but there's gonna be nothing else. Like, it just doesn't, it's so hard to explain. Just think about it, you know, and try to encourage people to bring a couple of meat-free sides, or maybe throw one or two in yourself, so that somebody is not contributing to a potluck and then getting nothing in return because they can't eat anything else that is there. That can get a little frustrating. So the final thing is, if it is getting too difficult, if you are not used to cooking for vegetarians, if you're having trouble finding recipes, if the people who are coming to your celebration are being overly picky, at that point, I would say, hey, okay then, why don't you provide me one or two recipes that will work for you? And that's kind of last case scenario, because there's so many recipes out there, and I think you'll be fine and you'll figure it out just great. And it doesn't have to be rocket science, you know, just have some things that they can do. And like I always like to say, every single recipe is adaptable. So when you look at a recipe, say, can I make that with meat and without meat? Can I leave the meat out and then add it at the end for everybody else? Because that way you're not making separate recipes. You're just sticking with the same thing that you planned, which works out really well. In the case of vegans, you can substitute almond milk instead of regular milk. It really, in my opinion, doesn't taste all that different. I don't know. I'm not a vegan, so I don't know what their like stance is on non-dairy milk. You can ask about that. I don't know. But there's so many options, and you can go to our Veggie Everyday Pinterest. We do have some holiday recipes on there. Also, our vegetarian food group on Facebook. Everyone's welcome. You don't have to be vegetarian. We have a roundup of vegetarian and vegan recipes in there. And we also have a vegetarian roundup, and there's some vegan ones in there as well that'll be coming out on Veggie Everyday later on this week. VeggieEveryday.com, that is. So please feel free to follow us, subscribe below, and I'll keep providing more tips on cooking for the vegetarians in your life. Thank you for joining us.